The Marine Corps requires leaders of all ranks to have a deep understanding of war and the employment of force. MCDP 1 reminds Marines that the military profession is a thinking profession. Every Marine is expected to be a student of the art and science of war. It goes on to say that every Marine has an individual responsibility to study the profession of arms. Self directed study in the art and science of war is at least equal in importance to maintaining physical condition and should receive at least equal time. The Marine Corps Association understands the critical importance of ensuring that Marines are as mentally ready for combat as they are physically ready. That is why we offer an entire page dedicated to wargaming on our website. We have recommendations for both tabletop board games as well as computer games. And for Marine Corps Association members, there is a discount code for War Game Design Studios that you can find on the website. War games are a great way to immerse yourself in history and to put yourself in the shoes of the great leaders of history. Go beyond guided instruction and experience the thrill of wargaming. Check us out at mca-marines.org/decision-making-exercises/wargaming-2. That's mca-marines.org/decision-making-exercises/wargaming-2. Take your training to the next level. Hey, Scuttlebutt listeners. Welcome to episode 211. This week, we welcome Chaplain Commander David Duprey and Dr. Lelia Brady to the show. Chaplain Duprey is a Navy chaplain currently attending Naval War College, and Dr. Brady is the Assistant Branch Head, Behavioral Programs, Prevention and Response. September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, and we are so lucky that Commander Duprey and Dr. Brady were able to make time in their busy schedules to come on and talk to us about their work in this important endeavor. Both of our guests have dedicated their lives to holistic health and well-being and are devoted to helping Marines and service members thrive both mentally and physically. This episode is full of great nuggets, wisdom, and resources. As always, if you need help, get help. And if you haven't heard from a friend in a while, reach out. Too many of the people we've served with have the words, "I had no idea," or "I hadn't talked to them in years," when we find out about a fallen brother or sister. Don't underestimate the power of something as simple as a text or phone call. Here is episode 211. Hey, Scuttlebutt listeners. Thank you for joining us and your continued support. I am Vic. I'm here with Nancy.
Hey Vic, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Looks like, so just if you couldn't tell by the audio quality, we're doing this one remotely. And so I'm at home and Nancy is not.
I'm at the office. I'm at the office because I'm just that dedicated to being here at the Leatherneck office that, um, I can't stay away.
You're an inspiration to the salt mines.
Why does that not sound convincing, Vic?
That's 100%. Oh, speaking of convincing, did you do your bio?
No, I did not do my bio.
Did you
I
see
already have.
mine?
No, I didn't, but
It's not gonna make it. I'm gonna have to do another.
Did you write like a smart alecky kind of Vic version
I
of
don't
the
want to.
the
I don't want
bio?
to spoil it for all of our frequent website goers, but if it makes the cut, it's gonna be epic.
Okay. All right. Well, I
It's
look forward to it.
it's 3 sentences of gold. I'll put it that way.
Okay. Gold is good. Gold is
And
good.
and actually unbelievably accurate. So if I have to
Okay.
change it, actually it'll be less of a reflection of myself than if we just go with it. But we'll see how it
I'm
goes.
so intrigued. I'm so intrigued.
Well, we are really honored to be welcoming our two guests today, um, talking about a really serious topic, which is people who listen to the show know that I've got some issues. I need to unpack some things inside when it comes to talking about my defense mechanism is always some snarky, smart ass thing to say or to make light of things. And so, but this is one of those topics that does actually hit close to home for me, as I continue to struggle, but continue to fight through. My experiences in the Marine Corps, in the Long War, just all of the things that through mental health and you know all of the various things that seem to be plaguing veterans in particular, and veterans of the Long War in particular. But really looking forward to welcoming Chaplain David Duprey and Dr. Leela Brady to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the invitation, especially to share this show with my great friend, Dr. Brady.
And thank you as well. It's always an honor to get to join CHAPS. Um, I've said this for years, but I'll continue to say it in multiple spaces. Man, our chaplains are incredible assets across the Marine Corps. And Chaps Duprey, we couldn't ask for a better soul in that role. So I'm honored to call you a friend, and more, even honored more to call you chosen family. So grateful to get to be here today with you. As we start our conversation, just need to throw out there anything that's said today is of my opinion, not based on the opinion or stance of the Department of Defense or United States Marine Corps. So all the good stuff, but just making sure that's captured.
Yeah, so stand down, lawyers.
Yeah. We appreciate the disclaimer. And thank you both for being with us today. Again, like Vic said, and our regular listeners know that we cover a wide variety of topics, and I think that's one of the things that makes the show good, that we can cover the serious things, and we're going to bring the right people in to talk about this.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this one hits close to home for us, for me. We've had we've gone as far as to have audiologists on the show to talk about the effects of hearing loss and things on mental health. We have a friend, a brother of a friend of the show. Want to start a segment called "Get Out of My Head," but he's actually a shock trauma therapist down at Fort Bragg. He's just he'd gotten out as a major, but he worked with SOF, Bubba's special operators down at Fort Bragg as their um, trauma therapist. He's a psychologist, and we've had chaplains on. We did a thing very early on in celebration of Fort Chaplains Day. Um, so anyways, this is a reoccurring, and I'm so happy that it is a reoccurring topic for us, because we not only again is it something that we take very serious, but the information that's out there changes so much. We learn so much more about what it means to be affected by mental health and by depression and the suicide epidemic in particular amongst veterans. So again, thank you so much for being here. But before we jump like fully into the deep end on this really weighty topic, I would like to get a little bit of your guys's sort of background and how you came to be in the positions you are. So Chaplain, if you wouldn't mind, just what brought you to the chaplain corps? Was being a chaplain something that you'd always sort of inspire or were aspiring to become, or yeah, but just how did you end up wearing the uniform and the cloth, if you will?
Sure. I'll try to tell a long story quickly. My dad would say that I did it backwards. Most people get out of the service and then have grandchildren. I had grandchildren as I was coming in. So I had spent 20 years in civilian ministry, all in the Episcopal Diocese of Wyoming, in very small places, and then some of our larger spaces as well, and had some quite a bit of experience working with families who were suffering from the results of having a family member die by suicide. So that kind of base of pastoral ministry there. And then I came into the chaplain corps actually on an age waiver when I was 45. I graduated right here in Newport at 46 years old, and then thought I would just spend a few years. Didn't know. I just wanted to punch my ticket, just wanted to serve my country, salute the flag, all those things that are deeply patriotic, and offer what I have. And then here, 17 years later, I'm looking at my last 3 years to finish up my quick 40 to start my career, and then I'll have to figure out what I do when I grow up. So, so this idea of combating or always coming up against suicide as an issue in the Marine Corps and in the Navy are things that I've worked with uh, in ways that I hope, as we've shared with Dr. Brady, are life-giving. When you speak to us about these subjects, I think Nancy found out yesterday, you don't hang up the phone thinking, oh, that was a drag. I think we're looking to draw life and life-giving resources from every corner in our cross collaboration. So I did that as a civilian pastor, and I'm pleased to do that now as a Navy chaplain.
That's awesome. And
I love
we were
that.
talking before we started recording. You're at the Naval War College right now, correct?
Yes, sir. Yep. On Monday, I'll begin orientation. I'm here, blessed to be here for the senior course, and what the Marines call the top level school. And I am one chaplain in a class of about 300 across our various armed forces, international students, and senior civilian leaders as well. So I'm looking
That's
forward to this
amazing.
journey. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what a wonderful opportunity. And Lelia, how are you? You are currently right now. You're the director of embedded preventative behavioral health program. Is that correct?
No, so that was
Oh,
my previous billet.
okay.
Yeah, no, and that was such an honor. And that's actually where Chaps and I met when I was in that role. So I'm currently the assistant branch head for behavioral programs
Okay.
for the Marine Corps in prevention and response. So I am incredibly blessed to serve the teams that target right policy, engagement, you name it, on suicide prevention and sexual assault prevention and response for the Marine Corps. We also integrate integrated prevention across all programs, and our primary prevention strategy is Marine Corps Total Fitness, which is where my heart lies in a fitness, holistic wellness. Positive psychology is my foundation and strengths based from a clinical lens. So I'm thrilled that our commandant signed the strategy of Marine Corps Total Fitness in October of 23. And that's where I am now. Joined this family of the Corps 29 years ago. So I was like a 2-year-old. But
That,
really,
me too.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that
me
totally
too.
math checks out.
you know, I jokingly say that I eloped with a Lance Corporal out of at 29 Palms. So, that's what you do in 29 Palms. Yeah, that's what we do out there. Uh, and that started my journey in this area. I was not in this field at that time. I was completing my degree in English literature and minor in history. And was a volunteer for many, many years, Key Wives, KBN, Key Volunteer Network, if we can, again,
Yeah,
2 years old when I was volunteering, if we can just say
sure.
that too,
Yeah,
right?
no, you have to have
Yeah,
all the child services for you,
right.
not for your children, but for
Yeah,
you.
yes. All those accommodations, absolutely. Totally kidding. But got to serve in that capacity. And then I was one of the first family readiness officers with the Marine Corps that led me here into this field within social work through USC's program on military social work, clinical. And what an incredible honor it is to serve this community and continue to get to serve. And I'll do this as long as they'll have me. But yeah, that's what brought me here. What brought me to Quantico was by choice, which is always funny because folks usually PCS out here. Left California 3 years ago. Camp Pendleton. I was out there for most of my career as a federal employee. But I joined the Quantico team to combat suicide. So that's what brought me here. Is foundationally in my heart was um, empowering and inspiring Marines to live lives worth living. And some of my deepest, greatest mentors said, "Hey, it's not for the faint of heart, but if you have it, which we know you do, we need you in a headquarters role. So grateful to
Wow.
serve in that space. So
Well, blessings to both of you for what it is you do, and let's talk a little bit about that. So if you wouldn't mind, Chaps, if you come back to you, you mind talking about your work with Marines and sailors and suicide prevention?
Sure. And maybe I'll just link it with Dr. Brady, and we'll just kind of keep this going. Where we met was out in California when Dr. Brady was working for One Meth, and we literally went on the road together. And in the course of, I think, 3 days, we trained about 1,000 Marines in what I call the Tier 1 training. So if you picture a pyramid with a foundation at the bottom, we consider that foundation to be the thing that's required of all Marines according to the general military training. Right now, it's the UMAPIT or UMAPIT program, and they have to check that box every year. So we know that on the Marine Corps and the Navy side, there's something that's required that goes, up on the spreadsheet that says you did the annual training. So those change from year to year and cycle through. And then on that foundation, we build 3 tiers. For me, the Tier 1 is always an all hands ask of any commanding officer that I have. And then the Tier 2 and Tier 3 are established programs that the Chaplain Corps uses. Tier 2 is called Safe Talk, produced by Living Works Education. It's a 3-hour program. And then Tier 3, which is really the highest level and the gold standard of intervention training, is called ASSIST, Applied Suicide Intervention Skills Training. And that's 2 days, 14 hours. So that's a huge chunk of training. But we don't send people just ask for a show of hands and send them to ASSIST. What my philosophy is that I want to try to get everybody in the room for an all hands Tier 1 training, which is 1 hour. And then only those volunteers that raise their hands go to the 3-hour and then on to the 14-hour training, so that those people that have gone through each of those trainings really have more than a lot of professionals have in terms of intervention skills. And where we met was that I was asked to go out to 1 MiG and train really as many of the 1 MiG Marines as we could get in the course of 3 days. And Lelia, Dr. Brady, traveled with us. She was there to help take statistics and hand out information cards. And we really got to know one another in the context of that training. And really our goal in that Tier 1 training is to change the minds and hearts of those who receive the training, Marines and sailors, and to change their minds from being voluntold to truly being volunteer. We accept the fact that when we stand up and begin a training, most of them are rolling their eyes, they're sitting back in their chair, they're thinking, hey, this is just one more thing I've got to do, and then I can go home. And the goal of that hour is really to change the air in the space, to change the air in the room. And usually we find that is changed over the course of the hour. And then Marines sit up, they start to engage. And by the time we leave the room, Marines, many of the Marines are leaning forward and asking for more training instead of, hey, can you just let me go back to what I was doing before? And we do that by really engaging them in the subject, involving them, and doing that in creative ways that maybe we can demonstrate by the end of our time together today. And then toss it back to you.
So Chaps, we had 1,278. March of 2020, first week of March of 2020. So if we remember what happened the mid of March of 2020, huge impact. That was divine intervention and fortuitous. Really grateful to get to join you. And again, if I could just talk for a moment of his impact. So in this training, as Chap said, we've got tons of people, and we know adult learning. It's small discussion, it's emotional engagement. We know that annual training is traditionally in an environment that it'll take 3 to 5 years to contemplate behavior change because it's a classroom setting. But if we get an emotional connection, 3 to 4 months, 3 to 5 months, will contemplate behavior change. Not saying anybody's going to change it, but I offer that because we're in an environment that shouldn't be one that enhances or engages us from an adult learning standpoint, because we're trying to get everybody connected. And CHAPS has this way of and love that I've then seen him provide this with other chaplains. So grateful for his skill set, but also his ability to share that with comrades and peers. And um, he's picking up stuff in the room and carrying it and putting the bag on the shoulder and carrying the water glass and picking up the hat or the cover and grabbing a notebook. And at some point somebody says, "Hey, do you need a hand?" And he says, "No, I got it." Because that's what we do with the emotional baggage that we carry. That's what we do with the life things that we carry. And it's just that humility, and the ability of his engagement of just popping another thing on our pack, putting a little more in the pack, if you will. um, and then that discussion of fire teams, and who is it that'll answer the phone at 2 o'clock in the morning, and who is it in your contacts that will call you at 2 o'clock in the morning. um, and it's neat to see folks in the room who firmly believe they have no one in that fire team, and yet they're a part of our family. They're a part of our tribe, because the tribal component of the Marine Corps is such an impactful, powerful part of this family, if you will. Um, and he genuinely says to them, "You've got my number now. You do have somebody in your fire team." But more than that is the then follow up with those folks who attended, and just observation of, "Hey, who was in your fire team?" "Well, I had one." "Well, what do you have now?" "I've thought about who those people are," because human connection is what we need. That connectedness, that come together, the brotherhood, the sisterhood, but the connectedness that we have makes a difference. And when CHAPS models that in a classroom environment, and we were at Pendleton, we were in Miramar, we drove to Yuma, and folks, I'm driving 2 chaplains to Yuma. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, pitch black. We're going over the 8. And if you've taken that route before, sometimes the wind really whips. 100-mile-per-hour winds that morning. I'm white knuckling my vehicle, and I'm like, "Lord, please don't let me kill 2 chaplains, because I guarantee, I'm pretty sure if I kill 2 chaplains, I'm not going to heaven." Like, and they're super chill, talking along, and I'm like, "Little Kia, don't jump off the side." Um,
That's a
I
lot of responsibility. The
me too. I'm
lives of
not
2
kicking
Yeah,
chaplains.
physical and spiritual. Yeah,
Yes.
it's a lot of weight.
I was like, please, 100-mile-per-hour winds and
Yeah.
super chill.
And we talk about collaboration, but if you really want to learn to collaborate with someone, just go on a journey for a few hundred miles and train some real people together. And I think that's really deep into our relationship, as Dr. Brady has gone on to be one of the senior most leaders in prevention on the Marine Corps side. And and I'm making my way along as well. And I think, as you mentioned, really, it's not only about training Marines and sailors, but we're also trying to impart gifts and tools to other leaders, behavioral health professionals and chaplains alike, so that we can deepen their tool set, so that when we train, it's not here, sign here that you're going to train this exactly this way. Really, it's a set of tools that we hand, so that the lance corporal, or the PhD, or the masters of social work, or whoever is in the audience, or the general or the admiral, can use those tools in taking care of their own fire team. So you won't find us say, "Hey, it's got to start this way and end this way," but here are a set of 5 or 6 tools that you can put in your cargo pocket and then be able to implement in your work.
And
Yeah,
oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say that last story when you're talking about the road trip sounded like the beginning of a bad joke. Like, a behavioral therapist and 2 chaplains get in a car.
And instead, it was a beautiful journey, because it could have gone completely
Yeah.
awry.
That's the fact you
Yeah.
guys made it. Seems like it's definitely a happy ending to it. Um, Before Dr. Brady, before we get into what you were going to say, I just wanted to touch on one thing that Chaps was mentioning. Oh, I guess both of you had mentioned that it's fire team, and this is a work chaps, that you submitted for I guess, a what would it be? A collection of essays and stories and thoughts on suicide itself, and then this is something that you submitted as well, right? And it's titled Fire Team.
Yeah, it's a summation of a thesis that I was privileged to write when the Navy allowed me another year of education in 2017 and 18 at Princeton Seminary. And I got to take this tier 1 training and really break it apart, do some historical analysis, and then really talk about why it works. Then the piece that I shared with you that's entitled Fire Team has not yet been published, but it was essentially trying to summarize 75 pages in about 22 or 25 pages that could be read in one sitting. And really, as Dr. Brady emphasized, that really is the real core message, is building that personal fire team. So we're taking something that Marines know about and sailors know about too, because they have response
Sure.
teams, and every sailor's is a firefighter, and we rely on one another. But really, it's breaking it down into some functional terms that I believe is part of the answer. So back over to Dr. Brady.
So thank you, and I'm sorry, Vic, for the interruption.
Oh, sure.
Our country is drowning. We're drowning in discussion, and I say that acknowledging we're on a podcast, so nowhere am I saying. But we are drowning.
Yeah, drown
in
away here.
discussion.
This is
Right?
Yeah.
we'll put our water wings on. We're just diving
Fabulous.
right in. Yeah, we're
ready
yeah,
for it.
just full immersion.
But
Baptism,
we're void of
if you will,
people
right,
who are
chaps?
willing to take action. Right? We're void of that, of folks who are willing to take action, which is what this podcast is action. And Marines are action-based organisms at our core. At the very core, we are action-based. We are forward action. The connection, as I mentioned before, is tribal. And Marines have the uncanny ability to sense if somebody actually cares about you. Just this known, it's this second sense, if you will. Communication is cornerstone in that space. And when we talk about vulnerability, which the European definition of resilience is a combination of grit and vulnerability, and yet part of our critical vulnerabilities are written into our doctrine as an area of weakness, if you will. But vulnerability, and inspiring vulnerability through empathy, and leading by example, is the way to have impact on behavior, is the way to have impact in this space. And we are so incredibly fortunate to have Chaplain Duprey in the role that he's in, and his willingness to make a difference, in his willingness to share the story, in his willingness to conversation. One pebble in a pond extends to all borders with a ripple. And you empower those pebbles, you empower them everywhere you go. And that's the incredible part for me. Such a gift to even have this conversation today with all of you. But when we talk about that fire team and the impact of change, and why we require trust and unwavering trust in our population, it's because of men and women like yourselves. It's because of what you shared, Vic, of the personal, of the long war, and what that means. And when we say what that means, when you stand 23 years later, 24 years later, and what that looks like, and how that impacts. I had a commander once who shared with me, and I share this sentiment anytime I can. If we're lucky in leadership roles, and we don't choose who sees us as a leader, but if we're lucky, we imprint on the DNA of those we serve. And the approach that Chaps takes in the fire team approach, the approach that he's referencing from empowering and inspiring people to live lives worth living a worthwhile life. Our Commandant of the Marine Corps said that. He said, recording message, and so grateful that he and Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps were willing to say, and General Smith said, give us a chance. Just give us a chance. The sun will come up tomorrow. And our Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps said, we love you. Not I'm in love with you. Again, that's super creepy. We
Yeah.
love you. Right? Yeah, we got a program for that.
It's
Like,
it's all about the
right?
presentation and like certain words and certain content. Words matter,
Yeah.
right?
The order in which those words are said is so important.
So important. But wow, we have our highest level leaders are
Yeah.
willing to message with vulnerability, willing to message and demonstrate grit. I mean, let's look at the history of these two professionals' careers. And we have chaplains like Chaps Duprey, who's on the call today, who models that as well from the chaplaincy corps. So,
And what they're doing, what our senior leaders are doing, is they're trying to, in their vulnerability, with their strength, those things coupled together, they're trying to impart meaning and purpose. And the chaplain of the Marine Corps, Admiral Cash, really underscores through a study that was done at Harvard that 6 out of 10 of our this target population lack meaning and purpose. Will say that they don't have a sense of meaning and purpose, and that lack of meaning and purpose is really foundational in our approach to this problem. And so when Dr. Brady's underscoring good things that are coming from senior leadership, those things are all about driving home meaning and purpose. So the chaplain corps, the Navy will call it spiritual readiness. The Marine Corps side of the house calls it spiritual fitness, but it's all to awaken this inner strength from higher purpose, to really develop purpose through looking back. If you're religious, great, roll with it. But if you're not, what are those foundations of moral and ethical value that you received from those who imparted those through you, through mentorship and connections with the divine or the transcendent. So I think all of those things are exceptionally great. But when we talk about fire team, I don't always begin my training this way, but that article that you referenced begins by saying that suicide is a sniper that wants to take out a member of my fire team. Suicide is a sniper that wants to take out a member of my fire team. That gets your attention. So then we think about fire teams in firefights. I'm a big John Basilone guy, and you study John Basilone, you study Guadalcanal, you understand what he did and why he did it, and it wasn't because of patriotic principle that he kept fighting. It was to try to keep the guys in those mud holes alive. And so what we want to do is take that same spirit that I will fight to keep the people in my fire team alive, and to leverage it to this subject, so that if that's true, Marines and sailors, if that is true, that I'll fight to my death to keep you alive, then would I trust you if I needed help? And it's really just a translation of those terms. And I hope that I would. I hope that I would then trust you, that I could call you if I were in despair, and that you could call me. And then when you call me, I will answer the phone. And that's how we drive that message home. Over.
Sure. I wonder about a couple of things, and so much is so insightful about what both of you have talked about. Um, I wonder, though, as we are looking at sort of this weird generational, I don't know, inflection point or whatever, where we have um, folks who are potentially in uniform, but at the higher level. So you mentioned, obviously, our commandant, sergeant majors of the Marine Corps are veterans of the Long War, but many of the sort of, if you will, the stereotypical folks that are be affected by mental health and be affected by depression and suicidal thoughts and ideations, things, those folks are starting to leave the force. They're aging out, or they're leaving, ending their tours. And now you have this emerging generation that isn't growing up in a Marine Corps that is embroiled in, two theaters of war. Yet at the same time, we see that the mental health issue is pervasive amongst us. I mean, there's the book by Jonathan Haidt, Anxious Generation. I mean, we see that a lot of the members of the uniformed services are now coming into the service with mental health issues, anxiety issues, depression issues. What is that challenge like for you, as you don't, it almost seems as if there isn't a resident sort of, for lack of a better term, graybeard sort of cadre within the force that can say, wrap their arm around them, like, this is how you're going to get through this. So, and then we also have this weird dynamic of like a lack of trust in institutions, and you are focusing with, the fire team, like, trust me. But then when does that start to, I guess, I don't know, like, get watered down a little bit, as that the meanness of it starts getting more separated into the institutional. I don't know. I'm really just shooting. Am I even making any sense here? But please go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll kick this over to Dr. Brady because she does a great job of talking about how our population is even more vulnerable because of where they've come from. So it's not only what you just said, but it's even more so because of where our Marines and sailors come from. So I'll kick it over to you. You're much better at this than I am.
Oh, I appreciate that, chaps. So Vic, I've got 3 parts of this that I want to pop into. One,
You only get 2.
Oh no, but I really want 3. All right, 2. 2 with a
He's
promise.
kidding.
No,
Don't
no, yeah,
listen to
yeah, no,
him.
3.
I
3
never
is
listen to
I'm
him.
teasing.
Don't
I'm
listen to
totally.
him.
Five.
Just a little Josh
Go
back.
for it.
So before we go into where we come from, and frankly, right, we need people to join our forces that are willing to voluntarily run into the sound of gunfire.
Sure.
So that's a unique human. And aren't we blessed and gifted with some really incredible humans? Our population is not at a high rate of diagnoses, and that's a misnomer. We do face stress. Choosing to be a military officer or non-commissioned officer is in the top 5 most stressful careers in the world. So we have chosen a career path that is heightened stress. But the majority of our population does not have a diagnosis, but rather a navigation. It's an enhancement of skills to navigate the already stressful career path. And then how do I navigate what that looks like? And when we come in, and a heightened risk in the aspect that often stems from adverse childhood experiences, that increases our risk, not only from a suicide standpoint, but also 7 times higher risk to misuse alcohol. And we romanticize alcohol in the Marine Corps. We really do.
No.
I know. We say I was born at we were born in a bar. Okay, I was born in a hospital, and I don't hang out in the hospital on Friday night. Like,
Fair
it's
enough.
we got to have that conversation. And when we're talking about deaths by suicide with BACs of 0.30, we have to be willing to have those uncomfortable conversations. We have to. So when we go back to the ask about how do we, we're talking about trust. We're talking about belief. We've completed multiple red teaming engagements on our youngest population, our younger population. And, if we go back generations, the, older generation will say, hey, you guys, all number of descriptors that I won't repeat because they're not clean language. So we say that, but that population wants raw, real, and vulnerable leaders, not to be coddled. Nowhere does a Marine say, I want to be coddled. No, they have joined the United States Marine Corps. They have stood on the yellow footprints. They have completed the most challenging basic training there is across all services. And they're part of the 0.07% of our nation. Standing tall, standing proud. They are United States Marines. Nowhere do they want to be coddled. Raw, real, vulnerable leadership and the permission to do the same. And it's that belief and in something greater than ourselves. It's that strength through inner purpose and that belongingness. And so when we're talking about the fire team and belonging to the fire team and where we are from a tribal mentality of connectedness. Those are some of our greatest protective factors. The Marine Corps itself is a protective factor. And so you couple that with engaged leadership, actively mitigates the risks that we're talking about from a suicide standpoint. I offer all of that to say, in a time of darkness, in the time of where it is all encompassing and the perception is the only way to end the pain is to die by suicide, it's not the only way to end the pain, because what I've done is I've given that to the people that love me most. I've given that to my fire team. I've given it to my battle buddy. I've given it 2 generations to come will now be at a heightened risk for suicide. And I wanted to just take the pain away. I wanted to decrease the burden or the perception of burden on others. And what I've done is I've handed them my pain, and a pain in a way that is an emotion that I can feel. Just as shame and guilt are emotions that have physical weight, I've handed that. And that couldn't be further from the space. And so the approach of the fire team carrying it, we trained so incredibly well for the literal battlefield. We are elite warriors for the literal battlefield. What we're talking about in this topic is the battlefield of the mind and the battlefield of life. And is my fire team there with me? And oftentimes I want to battle that battle on my own. But in joint environments, we're never alone. In a combat environment, we are never alone. And yet, how do I bring somebody in that moment? How do I trust, as Chaps talks about? Chaps, back to you on this one.
Yeah, do either of the hosts want to redirect, or I can definitely just carry that forward if you'd like.
Yeah,
No, I'd like, yeah, yep.
Yeah, please.
Sorry, Vic.
No, I got, yeah, please.
I think one thing that it reminds me of the tools that we have to draw from are that there's a journal article that was written several years ago called The Interpersonal Theory of Suicide. You can look it up. It's written by Dr. Thomas Joyner and a set of and his colleagues. And it essentially says that it draws that theorizes that the common denominator across all suicides, and you want to think about all suicides, those that are derived from a chemical imbalance in a person's system, or a situation, or a set of life circumstances, whatever they might be. Common denominator amongst all are increased burdensomeness, and with the addition of what they call thwarted belongingness and a hopelessness about these states. So if I have a Marine or sailor in my office and we're talking about suicide, we're talking about life stress is so great that this person's having difficulty carrying them, I will go to my whiteboard and I will take this theory and I will draw it on the whiteboard, and I will say burdensomeness, arrow up, plus belongingness, arrow down, equals hopelessness. I'll just draw that on my whiteboard and sit back and look at the person and say, is that what we're talking about? And I already know the answer, but many times, because of the trust and confidentiality, they will say that is exactly what we're talking about. I said, okay, great. So now in our conversations, as we go forward, what's our goal? And I take the green pen and I say burdensomeness, arrow down, belongingness, change to the arrow up, and then I just circle the word hope. And that becomes our goal. So if you're listening to this podcast and either you or someone that you know is at risk for suicide, just keep that formula in mind every single time you speak to them. And certainly for your fire team, that's what we're practicing. So if you call me and I'm already just completely trashed because I'm listening to the stories of humans all day, and Dr. Brady calls me, it's like, that's no problem, because you belong to me. and because your call is not a burden to me. And she can feel that when I pick up the phone, regardless of what hour that might be. So we always want to keep that in mind, that if that theory is true, we want to combat it by increasing the sense of belongingness, decreasing the sense of burdensomeness, because the person that is absolutely in despair by themselves is thinking that I don't belong to anybody and I'm just a burden to this whole world and I need to check myself out of this equation. And we need to constantly remind them that there is hope, and that equation and that theory, super helpful, and folks can get their minds around that. So back over to you.
Well, I just wanted to piggyback off that a little bit. One of the things that we had talked about in previous episodes discussing this was, and I'll go back to the hearing loss issue. You know, the words "I love you" kind of lose their potency when you have to say it 5 or 6 times. Um, your kids are less likely to be excited to see you when you don't hear them talking to you. Um, or you have an inner ear imbalance and you keep falling, and so now you're hurt. And so um, we had talked, this sort of system of systems. One of the things that I used to tell my guys when we were on deployment, and this was more, I wasn't thinking it as grandiose as mental health, but or as suicide prevention, but I was thinking of it in a mental health context. That because when I had gotten to my unit, I had 19-year-old kids who were on their third deployment. It was insane, and so I would just reinforce to my guys that, hey, somebody here in this room may perform in a way that isn't going to make the annals of Marine Corps history. And that's okay. The biggest thing we have to do is we have to welcome that Marine back into the unit.
Yep.
So they don't feel like a pariah. They don't feel like they let us down. They don't feel like a coward, because we don't know where they are on their gauge for being able to handle things. It's not like you're wearing a speedometer and being able to check where you're at, where your gas tank is or anything like that. And so it could be, and we all are born with different capacities for handling stress as it is. And so, yeah, you may have a guy who was like Silver Star Medal of Honor recipient one day, and then the next he can't move in the middle of a firefight, and that's okay. The biggest thing we cannot do as those around him is make them feel ostracized or guilty or for what, because then that's just we're going to end up losing 2 people in that fight, and we just can't afford to do it. I don't know what I was talking about then. I don't know what I was talking about now.
Yeah.
It seemed to make sense because of my own personal experiences.
Sure.
Sure. Talk a little bit about things that, because you're talking about getting that burden arrow down, the belonging arrow up. What are some of the things that people listening to the show and things that you talk to about that are tools to help them sort of, because especially if you have a chemical imbalance, if your brain has been so rattled that your synapses aren't firing, you can't release dopamine, how do you get them to actualize those arrows changing?
Sure, I'll kick it over to Dr. Brady, but I would just say in response to what you've said, Vic, what we train is insulate, don't isolate. So that is the idea that when someone has wronged or done wrong or even wronged themselves, those that are, let's say that the key leader who's at risk for suicide needs to spend 72 hours in a psychiatric unit, and then they're released to go back to work. Those are very real things, and that we should insulate that member rather than isolate that member. Dr. Brady, do you want to follow up on Vic's question?
I do. And then I'd love to have the conversation before we break off today of tangible items we can do, because I think that's important too. Because when we're talking about that, the equation that Chap shared, we like to throw the accelerant on there of consumption of a substance. And when we toss alcohol in as an accelerant in that space and a relationship has ended, we put ourselves in a dangerous spot. But when you're referencing how can we do that, our brain adapts to every decision we make under pressure, and we're talking about that brain itself. And as you've referenced, Vic, some of the damage, and you're talking about injury, not damage, but injury. But every time I make a decision under pressure, my brain adapts and grows, which is why complacency kills, which is why we can't be in a space of, hey, I'm not going to continue to grow. My brain weighs the cost, the part of the brain that makes those decisions. It weighs cost versus reward. And it's also the part of the brain that when I have small wins, they matter. It's small wins. So when I talk about when I look at it from a physical standpoint and running, 10-mile mark was always my mental block. For whatever reason, traditionally running in Carlsbad, going up Carlsbad Boulevard, if you hit that 10-mile mark, yes, absolutely. Or Montana. I mean, I love Montana, God's country, but I'm going up Carlsbad Boulevard, right? And that 10-mile mark is usually the course in the Carlsbad half every year. And my brain would run into this. And I met with a sports psych who said, hey, I want you to imagine at the top of that little incline, because it's a tiny incline, but in my head, my body was saying this is a huge incline, but it's not, it's a tiny one. When you see the wall, go around it, go through it, or go over it. You imagine, go around it, go through it, go over it. Because I increased my brain plasticity, big word, the ability of my brain to adapt and increase with small wins, my brain is prepared for the navigation of those big challenges. And I could increase that strength. And part of that is inner strength from higher purpose. And so connecting from a fitness standpoint, both spiritual fitness, physical fitness, mental fitness, the mental fitness we apply in that challenge. And then as Chaps has talked about, the social fitness of a healthy fire team, because who I surround myself with matters.
Yeah.
But what can I do about it? Access to lethal means. And nowhere are we talking Second Amendment right. Nowhere am I saying take my guns, because I don't want you to take my guns. But let's be frank. If I'm chatting with Marines and veterans, the question isn't, do you have a gun at home? It's how many weapons do you have at home?
How many do you have?
Right? Because we have them. And I
Yeah.
don't want you taking mine. But I need time for pause. Just
right.
Time and space, that pause. If I'm drinking, you're not letting me drive my car. We're not leaving O'Sullivan's, if you will. We're not leaving with me behind a wheel. So let's just give time and space in the same environment for a lethal means. And that's something we can action, because how a person dies is as critical as understanding why they chose to die. Mm-hmm. And the only person who can answer that question isn't here with us today.
They're not. And we've even said, I think Dr. Brady, correct me if I'm wrong, but even if I have the key to my own lock that is locking my weapon, those are barriers to action, so that it decreases that distance from flash to bang. Wherever I go, I take this concept of Marine Corps total fitness with me, and I took it in the Navy. I remember being on submarines and talking about this idea of mind, body, spirit as being like a triangle, and I make the triangle with my hand like this. The viewers can't see it, but just kind of making a triangle with my two hands, and then having the audience paint the picture of mind, body, spirit around that triangle, and you can place mind or body or spirit on any of the corners that you want. But to get them to think about this, but I'm really not a triangle, am I? So I fold my two hands together into this composite, and that's really who I am. Mind, body, spirit is the composite of me. And then I break my two hands apart, and I reach out and take someone's hand, and that's the social connection. That just took me about 45 seconds to say. So mind, body, spirit is this triangle that creates this composite, and then I am necessarily connected to others. So very quickly, in any time frame that I have, even if I have 10 minutes with a group of people, I can take them into an assessment around that triangle. So the viewers, the listeners have already built the triangle. They got the mind, body, spirit. So then you just go around, well, how are you doing? So let's just start with the easiest one that Marines and sailors talk about all the time. Physical. Yeah, your physical fitness, strength, resilience, like how you doing? Scale of 1 to 10, decimals, halvesies are all included. You just place a number for yourself, and you do it right now. How are you doing for physical fitness, and give yourself a number. Okay, then you go to maybe the next easiest one, the mental fitness. So you think about your mental acuity, what you're studying, what you want to be, all those ways that you're stretching your mind. How are you doing? 0 to 10. Give yourself a number. Halvesies included, decimals are fine. So you pick a number, and then you go to this weird, interesting spirit side. And where is that? Well, that's your sense of higher purpose that we've talked about. If you have a faith practice, you're deeply practicing your faith, or whatever is your connection to the transcendent or the divine, or a sense of value and purpose in your life. So then you give yourself a score, 0 to 10. And then the connection, that social connection, is the fire team, and that becomes what we'll do at the end, and that is how many people are in your fire team with you. And so then quickly then I can go to, can you think about how you can raise one of those numbers by 1? If your physical fitness was a 6, can you think about what you would do to make that a 7? Or your mental fitness, or your social fitness, or your spiritual fitness. And in every audience that I have ever presented to in this very short training segment, I'm at about 3 minutes right now, every single person can think about how they can raise one of those numbers by 1. And then my theory is, if you raise one of those numbers by 1, your entire composite is going to be strengthened. And that's how we do life day by day, is by doing self-assessment and taking action in any of those quadrants where we can see is we could most readily increase that number, and then we engage. And I do that today, and I do that tomorrow, and I do that the next day, and I become healthier, stronger, more resilient. That is a demonstration of what I will do when I have no PowerPoint, and I'm just hanging out on a mess deck on a submarine with people that are working way harder for a living than I am, and I want to hold their attention and give them something that they can take with them. And in all those cases, there's some point at which each individual will make some connection and understand, yep, there's something I can do, and I need to go make a plan to do that. So I'll kick it back over to Dr. Brady.
So chaps, I love when you do that. And I want to ask our hosts for them to think about, how could they raise one of those areas of fitness by 1 today? What can you do? Can I put you on the spot, guys?
I was afraid this was going to happen.
This is like the second time. We had
I know.
Old Pavel did the same thing to us.
We've
on the last
got the
one.
guests turning the tables on us.
Dogs and cats living together. So I will say this. I can think of a myriad of ways that I should up my numbers, because I've become a lazy sack as of late in so many different ways. But I do want to reinforce that I think that there's so much goodness in what Chaps was saying about just raising one of them has effects in the other things. I think about, like, I'm in a current situation where I haven't worked out in a couple weeks, and I can literally feel my inability to produce dopamine.
Yeah.
And for a myriad of reasons, my brain doesn't work the way it's supposed to. One of the things that helps it jumpstart and get into that routine that you're mentioning, Lelia, is I get those small victories just by doing a 30, 45-minute workout. My brain starts pumping out dopamine, and then it starts wanting to do that more, and not in a substance abuse kind of way. Mm-hmm. And now it's just doing it on its own. And I find that I have a lot less depressive thoughts. I have a lot less hopeless thoughts. I'm more probably, I don't know. I'd have to ask my wife if I'm any more pleasant to be around. But anyhow, there's a lot of those various connections. I feel like my I listen to a Christian podcast or a theology podcast, or even just listening to music, I think gets me in touch with the transcendent. So I'm really working all three of those things all together just by doing something as simple as a 45-minute workout.
Yeah, wonderful.
And I would say, and as you were, I knew you were going to throw us a question and put us on the spot. And just from my perspective, I noticed last night, I haven't worked out all week. And I kept telling myself, oh, it's deadline week. It's deadline week. You don't have time to go to the gym. Just, get through each day and that's it. But then last night, when I closed my eyes, I couldn't fall asleep. Well, why couldn't I fall asleep? Because I haven't worked out all week. I haven't done that thing, which is, for me personally, I guess it's a dopamine hit, but for me, it's more of a release the valve a little bit, release some steam from that valve so everything just goes shh, and so I can turn, maybe turn my brain off a little bit, I suppose. And so I will be definitely going to the gym after work tonight, no matter what, even if it's only for 5 minutes.
I'm going to start doing push-ups right now, actually, if you don't
do
mind.
Do it, Vic.
Do it.
I'm going to go off camera here.
Well, I will confess to Dr. Brady and to you all as well that I've been on gloriously on leave, and I've hiked and we've walked a lot, but I've got to learn how to go back to the gym again now, and I have to learn that it takes both shorts and running shoes. 2 days ago, I completely forgot shorts, and I was in the locker room and like, what am I gonna? So I ran on the treadmill in my dress pants with my shoes. Today,
that's dedication.
I brought the shorts, got out of the car with my shorts, and realized I didn't bring running shoes. So I've got to learn how to just do the simple things of putting the shorts and the running shoes in the bag, so that, because I'm at the gym and I'm ready to go. But so just the habits of those things. So back over to you.
So I love that. I love that you both talked about small wins. And Chaps, yours is those small wins because they matter. They matter to our brain. We need them, regardless of where we are in our journey. We need the small wins. And when we think about how do I increase one area of strength? How do I increase one area of fitness? What does that look like? And what does it do when I increase, as you said, Vic, you dropped and gave us 20. How does the mind feel? Because I've just enhanced my mental fitness there. I've laughed. I've just enhanced it. Yeah. And how that intertwines together, and how incredibly crucial that is when we're talking about enhancing the total human just a little bit. I'm not asking you to go out and run a 100-mile race tomorrow. I'm not asking you to become a marathon runner. I just want you to enhance just a little bit, just that little step, that tangible bite size, if you will, what that looks like and how it feels, and how a level of community involvement, volunteering in veteran organizations, volunteering in veteran service organizations in our community, in that social connectedness, how that decreases my harm for all destructive behaviors. And how crucial it is, because being a member of this community, the Marine Corps community, we're always a part. We're never going to be, we don't leave this family and say, hey, I was a Marine. No, I'm always a Marine. I'm always a Marine spouse forever. Divorce doesn't matter. That's a part, the imprint on the DNA, if you will. The Kool-Aid drinking, however you want to word it. We do all those different reference points for our tribe. But I think the other important item here is, if you're having those thoughts, reach out today. Reach out. And Sergeant Major Ruiz gave a call to action over Memorial Day. He gave another call to action last week.
I saw that.
Pick up the phone and reach out. Because we are a part of your fire team, and we will answer the phone. We'll be there for each other. We will be there on the days that are hard, because life is highs and lows, and I need the lows to appreciate the highs. But please reach out to your brothers and sisters, because we're here and we love you. We absolutely love you. Not in love with you, again, creepy, but we love you.
Yeah, that's. I think it's really important that the 811 number is important to talk about here as we think about finishing up. To that everyone, and when I say leader, I mean Lance Corporal, I mean deck seaman, whatever. I'm not saying rank, I'm saying leader. Every leader should have the numbers for the behavioral health providers and the chaplains in their particular unit, so that when someone next to them needs help, they have ready reference. So if we want to be leaders, regardless of our rank or how much money we make, we should make the effort to be connected to those behavioral health chaplain resources within our unit, so that we're ready to help other people. And if you'd like, do you want to demonstrate the fire team now? And sure. Dr. Brady, this doesn't mean that I have the last word here. I just want
to make sure we know it's 988, not 811. So 988 is the number to call.
Thank you.
Just want to make sure. 24/7 hotline crisis line.
Thank you. Thank you. 988. Thank you.
988.
Almost glad I said it the wrong way, so that you could say it the right way, and then we could have it. We could have it clearly in our minds. Okay. Thank you. 988. So the subject will not be a surprise, because we've talked about fire team throughout this hour. But the way that the Tier 1 training transpires, it is something of a surprise. So when I ask the audience to close their eyes if they want to, but to imagine that there is a circle that surrounds them, and they can just create this imaginary circle in their mind, and they can close their eyes if it's easier for them to imagine that. Everyone can do that quickly. And then in that circle, I ask them to imagine themselves standing in the circle, and then see within that circle anyone else that they know that truly understands the condition of their heart as it is right now. Like, who gets them, who understands them, who knows where they are, what they're going through right now, so that they imagine the circle, they see themselves standing in the circle, and then they begin to see perhaps others in the circle as well. As they begin to see those people in the circle, I ask them to label them, actually put a name on them, so that they have this sort of graphic being pictured in their minds. And then once they've done that, then I'll invite the audience to think about who might not be in the circle, but is really close to the circle, maybe just outside the circle. And that would be someone that maybe used to be in the circle. And in my case, I moved the circle. I sailed around the world. My people don't even know what country I'm in right now. So I can move the circle that eliminates people from it. Or there are people that are getting closer to me in my relationships, but they're not quite in the circle yet. And so then ask them to put labels on that. And again, in my office, I will do this on a whiteboard. I'll draw the circle, make stick figures, and write the names of the people in. And then I ask, I don't ask anyone to say anything personal about themselves, but I ask for volunteers to say, would anybody be willing to say how many people you saw in the circle, not counting yourself? And so we'll get a variety of people. Most always people will say 2 or 3. Occasionally somebody will have a high number like 10 or 12. That's pretty hard to sustain, but God bless you. And then very occasionally somebody will say 0, but usually, as in the case once very notably at the Cherry Point Chapel, in the far back right hand of the chapel, there was this old salty Marine, Master Gunnery Sergeant or Master Sergeant, and that salty Marine flashed up a 0 with their hand, so only I could see it. And I could see it, and I couldn't acknowledge it publicly. And by the time we finished and people came up to chat, that Marine was gone. But that Marine and others are willing to say sometimes my number is 0. So what are we trying to get to? We're trying to get to 2 or more. And my theory is that if you live in North Carolina, which I've done, and you live on an island, which I've done, you do not want to live on an island in North Carolina with just one bridge. So sometimes somebody will say to me, hey, my number is 1, but my number is my spouse. And I'll say, that is so great. So what if the conflict is with your spouse? or with your best friend that you think you just need one. So we like to think of people and to build a circle or that fire team with at least 2 other members, not counting yourself. And then the homework becomes twofold. And audience, this is your homework. The homework is, if you saw people in that circle and you identified them, to reach out and tell them, hey, this crazy chaplain asked me to do this exercise, and when I pictured my circle, I saw you. Because you're also teaching them what it means for them to have a fire team, and on and on and on and on it goes. So that part of our solution to this grand problem is so that every Marine and sailor, everyone within our care circle, would be in a healthy fire team, and that within that fire team there'd be at least one person capable of conducting an intervention if need be. So back to the circle, your homework would be to reach out to the people that you saw, and then if you did not have 2 or more, then to look just outside your circle and to pull somebody in. And I have to say to the guys, this is not an unmanly thing. When I do this with my best friend Mike here in Connecticut, it sounds like I pick up the phone and I say, how you doing? And he tells me, and he says, so how you doing? And I tell him, and he's back in my circle. Or he calls me and says, I see that you're at a Shell station in Peoria, Illinois. Like, why are you in Peoria, Illinois? Because he can track me on my phone. All right. And then we just become back in sync, and he's back in the circle. So fire team management is active and necessarily active to maintain the health of that fire team. And then really, I will generally promise, and I'll say to my audience, my last name is Duprey, Duprey. My first name is David, and you can reach me at david.duprey@usmc.mil. Pretty easy. So you can reach out to us, but I can't really be in an emergent capacity. For that, you'll have to call 988 today, and I'm so glad that we have a chance to reinforce that. Or go to your local emergency room, or if less emergent, call your chaplain, call your behavioral health provider, Marine Corps family and life counselor, or anyone on that staff. So we all want to be there for you as a community. But generally, if I'm speaking to my Marines, they will have my phone number. And before we finish, I will offer to be a temporary fire team member, with the goal that no one within that audience lays their head on that pillow that night and says, I've got nobody. And sometimes people will take me up on that, and they'll call and say, were you serious? And I'll say, yeah, I was serious. Or they'll send a text, or however they do that. And then on we are about building these healthy fire teams, so that I can send a text to Dr. Lelia Brady, and that text can simply say fire team check or FT check, and she will know exactly what I mean by that. And for that is, I want a response that is substantial, that lets me know how you are really doing right now, and then she'll send that back to me, and then we've synced back up again. So I'll finish there, and I will simply offer to the audience that you're welcome to reach out to me at that email address, and I will be checking that tomorrow. And then if you have an emergent need, please call the emergency number. And God bless you all, and I mean that. So back over to you all to close.
I love that. I love those. Just want to jump in real quick, Vic, and before you close everything out. Love the. It's a tangible set of tools, but very, very manageable. Not complicated, really, to think about that and take action on those items. Really appreciate that idea. I can very, very clearly, very quickly see who's in my circle, and so I will be reaching out to them tonight and let them know, hey, guess what, you're in my circle. Now I want you to think about your circle. Thank you both for joining us.
Yeah, this has been really great, and this is definitely a topic I want to continue to explore because there are so many facets to it, and it's just so important. I mean, what we're experiencing amongst veterans, I mean, it's an epidemic. The numbers are staggering. I think someone equated it to if you were to go to a World Series baseball game, you'd probably go into a stadium of 50 to 60,000 people. And I think the number of suicides over the past generation would fill the stadium for veterans, something insane like that. So,
So
yeah,
Vic, we can stop that. We can pause
yeah,
that.
yeah.
We can
let's.
impact that. Yeah, let's do
Yeah.
that. Let's
I'm in.
let's connect with each other. Let's call our fire team. Let's connect today and know that the sun comes up tomorrow. The sun will always come up tomorrow. Even if it's a rainy day, the sun will come up tomorrow. And what I feel today is temporary. It's a moment. Temporary pain. Love is even temporary. And there's days where I'm going to love my spouse and there's days I'm not going to. And that's okay, as long as we're always willing to fight for each other.
Who was it that sang the song Love is a Battlefield?
Pat Benatar.
Yeah,
Go Pat Benatar.
Thank you, Nancy, for the.
We can stop that. We don't have to continue it, right? Let's stop it. Let's do that together. Let's commit today together that we'll stop that.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think this was a good
Absolutely.
good way forward on that. And thank you so much, Chaps, Dr. Brady. This has been really great. Nancy, did you have anything else that you wanted to say before we close out?
No, just hopefully you'll come back and join us again, and we can talk more about this.
Yeah, let's definitely plan for that.
Great.
And then I've shared with you the links on Divids. So if anyone would like to see those things demonstrated, those are out there, and you can provide those for your audience. And thanks to the hosts and my dear friend Dr. Brady. God bless.
Yeah, we're gonna have just a ton of references from what you've provided and things that we've maybe shared before, but want to continue to reinforce. Thank you again so much for making this accessible, for giving us an action plan. And then, like I said, we're definitely going to have you guys on, because I've just been jotting down all kinds of notes and stuff. And so thank you again so much for what you do.
Okay.
Thank
you all.
Appreciate you all.
Thanks.
Scuttlebutt is a production of the Marine Corps Association. You have heard the voices or contributions from Major Vic Rubel, USMC retired, Nancy Litchman, William Truding, and our guest. Ty Frazier is the editor, sound engineer, and technical producer. The Marine Corps Association is not an agency of the U.S. government. The opinions expressed in this episode are the personal views of the participants and do not reflect the official position of the United States Marine Corps, the Department of Defense, or the Marine Corps Association.